6'6", senior from Oahu, Hawaii, number 32,
Hey, what's up, guys? How y'all doing here? I've returned again, and as I said, I was going to do a 3-in-1 video in which the University of Hawaii men's basketball team had concluded the 2022 Outrigger Rainbow Classic. As you can tell, I changed my background. So anyway, we're going to highlight the first 3 games of the season, and that was in the Outrigger Rainbow Classic, as I said before. First game was against Mississippi Valley State, which UH won. Second game was against Eastern Washington, UH won. And the third game, the big test of all, Yale. And unfortunately, UH came up short against Yale in overtime. I'll say that right now. I'm saying the outcomes already. So, anyway. So, you've already seen the introduction in which I had did part of the starting lineup with local boy Samutsa Avea being introduced. And so that was in the Mississippi Valley State game, and we're going to start with that first. Okay, Mississippi Valley State. That was a good opener. UH was 4-0 against them. And did I think they were going to win? Yes, I did think they would win. And as it turns out, they did come through with the win, as I had predicted. They ended up winning convincingly 74-52. Or excuse me, 72-54. I should say. UH ended up winning that game, as I said. Noel Coleman, what else can you say about that guy? I mean, he led the way again with 22 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 steals. And he was also 7 of 13 shooting. He was also 5 of 10 from three-point range. And I don't know what else you could say about him, like I said. And even he's, like I said, like I said before, that guy's got range. He also had a couple of offensive and defensive rebounds, a total 4, as I said. Samutsa Avea, he was the man of the hour to me next to Noel Coleman, because what I saw from Samutsa that night is a prime example of him solidifying that he is back.
Avea shooting 2 shots. And the Delta Devils, number 2, Renko Gibson, 42, Michael Barber.
And he was practically telling the state of Hawaii, look out, folks, I am back. And with 20 points tonight, including this killer alley-oop from Javon McClanahan, that cemented it in my mind that he is back. And another guy of note, Bernardo da Silva, with a double-double with 10 points and 11 boards. He had the most rebounds of anyone. He was the only one to exceed double digits. Everybody else was 5 or less. Coleman, Kamaka Hepa, Javon McClanahan, Samutsa Avea, they were all under 5. Coleman with 4, Hepa with 4 rebounds, McClanahan with 3. They only had 1. But of course, with the rebounds, they did really well. in that particular category. They had 43 total rebounds to 23 from Mississippi Valley State. And of course, UH raced out to an early lead, which I had expected. But unfortunately, there was a cold streak there in that first half that really was kind of hard to watch. And I mean, they had a double-digit lead, and then Mississippi Valley State kept kind of creeping back in there. And but fortunately, UH managed to keep the lead. They led 30-28 at the break. But in the second half, the opening couple of minutes of the second half was where I felt that it really fell apart for a bit, and UH trailed by just 2 points. But here's the thing: they didn't trail for more than 2 minutes. They only trailed for 58 seconds. And although head coach Aran Ganat feels that they should have led wire to wire, I felt the same way too. To be honest, especially against a team like Mississippi Valley State, which is not really a D2 school by any means, but we have gone up against them 4 times, all in the islands, and we won all 4 games. And tonight, Veterans Day, when the game had aired, was number 5. And overall, I thought UH played really well, thanks especially with that lob from Avea from McClanahan, and I could kind of, you can kind of see it. Now I'm going to show it again here. Now after that lob, you can kind of see a little hint of a grin on Samuta's face when he and McClanahan share a smile and a high five. They certainly erupted the crowd in the Stan Share Center with that lob. And from that point on, after UH took the lead, it was all them. And they ended up pulling away by as much as 20 points. They ended up winning by 18. So what kind of grade would I give them for their Mississippi Valley State game? I would, excuse me. What kind of grade would I give them? I would definitely give them an A- for sure. Mainly because if they had kept the lead, I probably would have given them an A or an A+. Because the way that they played, they looked much, much better as opposed to UH Hilo in their exhibition matchup, even though they won by 16. So what I saw in there, I saw that the team was having a lot of fun. And that little spark that I was looking for, that I was kind of thinking would come in that first game, sooner or later, it came. I mean, they were efficient. They hit their shots efficiently. They responded well to Mississippi Valley State's pressure, even when they lost the lead. And I agree with Ganat saying that he felt that they shouldn't have trailed. But it is what it is. I mean, I still thought that they played well. After they lost the lead, it kind of woke them up. And then they realized that, wait a minute, what are we doing? When they lost the lead, they were kind of like, what are we doing? And then from that point on, it was all UH. Looking at HawaiiAthletics.com, Coleman scored 5 in a row to generate a 19-3 run to ultimately pull away, and that's all she wrote. So for a final score of 72-54, a win by 18 points, by 18, I would say they definitely deserve that A- grade from me. And if they had led the whole way, I probably would have given them an A or an A+. But still, I thought that they played really well. They were much better as opposed to UH Hilo. And Eastern Washington is a team that you just can't sleep on, and UH definitely did not sleep on them. So with that being said, let's get to the Eastern Washington game. And as I said, Eastern Washington, they're a team that you just can't sleep on. And this time, UH managed to right the wrong they did for Mississippi Valley State, where they didn't lead wire to wire, but they ended up winning. What kind of grade would I give them? Definitely an A for sure, because they definitely cleaned up a lot of the things that they did wrong against MVSU. But one of the things that really stuck out against UH in the Mississippi Valley State game, they were 4 of 20 from 3-point range after the first half. And what the corner crew inspection was saying, that you can't fall in love with the three. And that was kind of what UH did in a way. And I agree with that. I definitely think that was because the Delta Devils had definitely upped the pressure. And fortunately, UH did well to respond to that. So they definitely played well. They led wire to wire. And a lot more of that spark that I saw from the MVSU game, they carried it over. And they continue to play well. And just when it looked like that UH was going to get a win or win this tournament for the first time in 5 years, unfortunately that didn't happen. But hey, as I said against UH Hilo, the real first game begins at the end of December, because that's when conference play gets underway. Now, there were a couple of cold streaks that UH had, and one of their players, Casey Jones, he had a couple of slam dunks that I kind of felt that UH gave it to him, and you'll see one of them right here. You see, that's the kind of dunk that you would expect UH to make. But overall, besides their cold streaks, they definitely played much better as opposed to Mississippi Valley State. They were a lot more relaxed. They won both halves by 10 points. You can't do better than that. I mean, of course, but hey, props to Eastern Washington, because they kept it close when UH was going kind of cold. And they had two guys exceed 10 points, Angelo Allegri and Cedric Howard. And but one thing of note is that Noel Coleman led Steel Ventures, one of their other key players, to just 4 points in that win. And UH did much better. Their scoring was a little more balanced out. UH ended up with Kamaka Hepas leading the way with 17 that night. Noel Coleman with 15. Bernardo da Silva 14. And Samutsa Vea with 10. And Kamaka Hepa was 1 rebound shy of a double-double, but he led everybody with 9 boards. He was 7 of 11 on shooting. And he was also 3 of 7 from 3-point range, just like Noel Coleman. But what really told the story was the start of the second half, because UH ended up causing an immediate timeout from Eastern Washington after Avea had back-to-back triples. And I got one of them on film right here. As you can see, Avea is a guy that you just can't sleep on. You know why? Because he's a local kid, and he's good. He's good in the paint, and he can shoot the three consistently on any given night. And but another guy that I thought really deserves an honorable mention here is Justice Jackson. He had 7 points a couple of strong rebounds, and even a triple to kind of stretch the gap out for UH. And you'll see it right here. And, you know, judging by those shots from Jackson, and I did include the other two shots that he made, which were really good, I might add. Jackson is showing that he is more seasoned. He's more ready to go, because when he came in, he made his debut last year in the Diamond Head Classic. I thought he showed a lot of aggression. He showed a lot of hustle. And another thing he also showed is that he's not afraid to get in there and mix it up with anybody. And when you got point guard experience, that's the kind of performance that you could put on. I definitely saw flashes of justice from Junior Madute when he was here, because after losing Juan Munoz last season, Junior Madute became essentially the point guard of this team. As I said, after Munoz went down last season. So UH wins by 18. They do better here by 20 against Eastern Washington. But coming up next is Yale. And that game was the big test for UH, not only to win the championship, but for conference play when it begins at the end of December. All right, guys, game number 3. Yale versus Hawaii. Now, I have to say that in that game, there were a lot of misses. And I'm not implying like a lot of missed shots, and I'm not implying that both teams shot really poorly. I mean, neither one of them exceeded 40% in the final stats. But you know, honestly, I think this was the one game that, if there was one game that UH kind of threw away, this was it, unfortunately. You know, but for UH to but they proved they got the pace. But I'm not going to look at the glass as completely empty, because to look at the glass as half full, you factor out all the missed shots and everything, UH did just about everything right in that game except win. I'm going to say that right now. They did just about everything right in that game except win. And looking at the first half, Yale and Hawaii only accumulated for 33 points total. Yale leading at 17-16. And that was a nail biter. It could have gone either way. UH held the lead for much of the game, and that solidified, to me anyway, that UH does have the pace, and they could back up their second place prediction in Big West play when it comes in the end of December. But that was a game that could have gone either way. I mean, UH had the lead. They exchanged the lead several times. But the guy that I thought really came up clutch in the first half was Bernardo da Silva. And next in line was Dion Riley, because even though both guys didn't exceed 10 until the second half, well, Da Silva exceeded 10 after the game had ended. Da Silva, he ended up with 12. Unfortunately, he fouled out shortly into the overtime period. The guy who led the way was Jovan McClanahan with 15. And Noel Coleman was next with 13 points, but no triples converted, which was kind of a surprise to me because Coleman, he was 0 for 6 that night on November 13th, or excuse me, the 14th, because as I said, Coleman was 0 for 6. McClanahan was the leader in that with 3, and Kamaka Hepa had 2 triples converted. He ended up with 8 that night. But what came as a major surprise to me is the fact that Hepa didn't hit a triple until overtime. And I think that was the big difference. And although UH ended up with 6 triples compared to Yale's 3, unfortunately, the bad shooting all around kind of did UH in. I'm going to say that right now. But, you know, a lot of guys stepped up. Beon Riley stepped up. He had 4 points, but 8 rebounds, which was second in line because De Silva had 9. He was just shy of a double-double himself. Because, in fact, De Silva had 9, Riley had 8, and the next guy in line were 7th from McClanahan and Kamaka Hepa. So, obviously, their rebounding was pretty balanced. But the fact that they had so many misses was such an eyesore. But the fact that they defended really well and just hung around Yale like a bad itch, that proves to me that although UH came up short, they are ready for conference play. But I will say this, from the very beginning, I thought that Yale was the biggest question mark of all. And from what I saw tonight, that was proof. Because they got some shooters, and they definitely have, although they weren't really known for 3-point shooting tonight, they only have 3 triples compared to UH's 6. But the fact that they went perfect in the overtime period really did UH in. They made all their shots, and it really came down to the last. It really came down to the last second, and Avea and Coleman both had good looks at triples to save the game. Unfortunately, neither one of them went. But what really stood out at me was towards the end of regulation, when Coleman tried to be the hero, and unfortunately his layup at the buzzer was blocked by E.J. Jarvis of Yale. And unfortunately, before that, Coleman got called for a ticky-tacky foul, and that didn't really help UH's causes either. Because there were a lot of ticky-tacky fouls in that game. I'm going to say that right now. Some of them were pretty cheap. Some of them kind of basically no contact. But other than that, what kind of grade would I give them for Yale? And I may not have said this before, but Eastern Washington, they definitely got an A+ for me. I would definitely give them a solid A overall in this game, basically because they kept pace with Yale, even through the bad shooting. And like I said before, even though turnovers was a problem, UH had 17 turnovers to Yale's 8. That was another one. That was another part that told the story. But other than that, other than the shooting and the turnovers, I said this before and I'll say it again. UH did just about everything right in that game except win. They proved they got the pace when conference play comes around, and they passed the test. It may only be one game, but I think UH gave themselves a lot to look forward to when conference play begins at the end of December. So I'm going to show a little bit more of the B-roll that I took.
We're gonna have a possession after this.
And you can see neither team really had much of a effective rhythm going, mainly because of all the misses, all the missed shots. But still, overall, they hung in there. They didn't quit. Neither team did quit with 12 ties and 11 lead changes. It could have gone either way. Unfortunately, it didn't end on a positive note for UH. So, all right, guys, that's it. And in fact, I'm going to run down some of the stats. After the first half, UH was held to 7 field goals. They picked it up in the second half with 12, but they were 0 for 5 from 3-point range. And in the second half, UH did a little better at 4 for 10. And they were 2 of 6 in overtime, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. But the other part that really hurt us was that UH managed to out-rebound Yale by 20, 53 to 33. And usually when that happens, you come out on top. But from what I saw, unfortunately, it just did not work out. From what I saw, they got the pace, and you give them back at least half of the shots that they missed, they definitely would have beat Yale. I'm going to say that right now because they were pretty much evenly matched. And but there were only 2 free throws in the first half, and they both are from Hawaii, and UH made them both. So like I said, I think they got the pace. They definitely gave us a lot to look forward to when conference play does come around. And that, of course, is when the real season begins. So unfortunately, UH ends up 2nd overall in the Outrigger Rainbow Classic. And once again, it's back to the drawing board. They haven't won this tournament in 5 years. So obviously, next game is in Laie for the North Shore. They'll be playing 3 games there. First ever North Shore Classic. I won't be there, and but will I be covering those games? Probably not. But will I do videos on them? Probably not. So all right, guys, that's it for today. And I'll finish out with some more of my B-roll that I took myself. I want to stress that right now. So anyway, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you all next time. Well, I'm Apono, everyone.
Number 5, Bernardo da Silva. At guard, a 5'10" junior from Vallejo, California. Number 3, Jovan. And at guard, a 6'2" junior from Leopoldburg, Belgium. Number 4, Noel. Coleman. Help